What if I told you that a $600,500 investment, 3 unmanned boats and 1 homemade drone, erased a Russian offshore platform worth hundreds of millions? That radar, once able to track 200 surface targets at once, was gone in a single silent night. But this wasn't just about money. With one strike, Russia's forward eyes in the Black Sea went dark. Why does this matter? Because the destruction of that rig wasn't just a hit, it was a message. And if you think Russia's ships are safe, the message says otherwise. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How could something someone built in a garage challenge a fortress floating in the Black Sea worth tens of millions? That's the question that kept circling as a man known only as V powered up his quadcopter, a stripped-down craft he called Night Fury. The launch point was Snake Island, jagged and dark under a moonless sky. The clock read 2:30 a.m. By daylight, the target looked untouchable, miles offshore, armored with reinforced concrete, and guarded by Russia's watchful sensors. But in that hour, silence covered the water. The generators hummed in the distance, and only the rotating arms of a radar dish moved above the sea. That dish was the eye of the system. Without it, the fortress was blind. The radar in question wasn't some outdated relic. The NEVA-B could sweep 45 kilometers across the surface, able to follow more than 200 moving objects at once. Fishing boats, supply ships, even fast military craft. Nothing slipped through without registering as a blip. On paper, this meant infiltration from the air, or the sea was hopeless. Military planners would say you need a flight of jets to overwhelm it, or a battery of missiles to knock it off balance. Yet that night, the weak point wasn't deep within bunkers or behind armored doors. It sat exposed, perched high above the platform. The antenna itself, unshielded and rotating like a lighthouse. Holding cheap plastic goggles tight against his face, V traced the horizon with an analog video feed beamed directly from his drone. He kept his altitude under 50 meters, skimming low over the water to hide beneath radar coverage. Every few seconds, he tilted the sticks in rapid zigzags, moving not in wide curves, but tiny broken lines. The drone, weighing no more than a loaf of bread, cut forward without leaving a clean path to track. In the black water beneath, the reflection of its diodes shimmered and vanished. On the rig, Russian electronic warfare systems kicked in. These arrays had already shifted battles far inland by frying digital links, severing GPS signals, and silencing thousands of drones before they could enter striking range. By theory, Night Fury should have been blinded already. But V had chosen something different, an old analog signal, the type many thought obsolete. That feed had no coded packets to corrupt, no satellite lock to sever. Even as jamming filled the frequency spectrum, his view inside the goggles stayed sharp. The rig loomed larger with every second. The telemetry at the corner of V's screen flashed a warning. Battery critical. His drone had already spent minutes at low throttle fighting headwinds across the water. Now, with less than 60 seconds of power left, the red digits counted down like a clock. 50%, 30, 15. Every pilot knows what happens when voltage nosedives. The craft tumbles and sinks, gone forever. He pushed throttle anyway. The image frame shook violently. Antenna arms spun ahead like metallic fans. At 3:20 a.m., the fragile frame slammed directly into those blades. Sparks flared. For an instant, power from the generator fused with the lithium cells on board. The sky above the rig flashed orange. The antenna collapsed in a single tilt, shards scattering into the sea. The radar stopped turning. On every Russian display connected to that system, contacts vanished. Their eye on the Black Sea was gone in half a second. If the sky delivered the first strike, the next blow came from the sea. Silent, fast, and unstoppable. Less than an hour after the falling antenna left the platform blind, the water around Snake Island carried something darker than the night itself. The craft was nicknamed Sea Baby, an unmanned surface vessel holding 1,000 kilograms of explosives inside a reinforced hull. Unlike a missile screaming through the air or a submarine pushing wake hundreds of meters below, this attack moved just above the waves, small and unassuming, masked by the chop of the sea and the broken reflections of starlight. Engineers designed Sea Baby not as a scaled-down warship, but as something closer to a disposable ram. Every component served the singular purpose of collapsing hardened maritime targets. At only a few meters in length, it carried a profile easily mistaken on radar for a bird gliding close to the water surface. Reports show its radar signature lined up almost identically with a seagull cutting across the horizon. That deception mattered. The rig's defenders scanned for ships with hulls, submarines with periscopes, fast missiles punching up waves. They weren't taught to identify a low-lying speedcraft moving without a crew. When the twin engines ignited, the vessel surged forward with a roar, all but drowned by open sea winds. 2,000 horsepower pushed it to 49 knots, faster than many coastal patrol boats could react. At first, the craft cut a shallow wake, then leaned into waves that nearly submerged its profile. Cameras mounted toward the bow provided a live feed to the ground controllers out on Snake Island. The video showed nothing but a foaming path across open water and faint lights blinking in the far distance, growing larger as the target neared. On the Russian rig, defenders were prepared to intercept missiles with deck guns, coordinate with nearby patrol ships, and launch signal jammers against incoming drones. Yet they did not expect what was coming. Sea-Baby weighed close to a ton fully loaded, more than enough to break steel supports when driven headlong into them. It was not guided by complex radar or GPS locks alone. Human operators oversaw micro-adjustments in real time, shifting course degree by degree as the rig towered above the black water. With the radar dish already severed from its tower, defenders had almost no early warning. They could see only a vague, dark silhouette darting across waves far below their defensive arcs. By the time it drew within visible distance, seconds remained. Operators targeted the central support joint of the platform, the weak hinge where the entire weight of the rig pressed down. Steering commands came fast, each one correcting for wind or swell, the video stream jolting from horizon to steel frame, back and forth in adrenaline-spiked flashes. Impact came with a thunderclap that carried far beyond the immediate sight. Explosives packed inside the hull detonated against the rig's structure, sending shock through bolts and steel beams. Fireballs consumed exposed machinery. Stored diesel tanks ruptured within moments. Generators lined with extra fuel canisters burst in succession. A chain reaction so intense that oil slicks ignited across the surface of the waves. The flash lit the sky for kilometers, a beacon over the water's edge seen by coastal towns. In under 5 minutes, the installation, once known as Boyko Bravo, shifted from fortress to collapsing skeleton. Tower supports leaned, then gave way. Whole sections of the frame dropped into the Black Sea. By sunrise, only twisted remnants of steel jutted above waves, spewing smoke where reinforced platforms once stood. This strike was never just about demolishing steel and concrete. It showed how cheap technology can overturn defenses designed to withstand fleets. A garage-built quadcopter and a few maritime drones achieved what missiles and warships were once required to do. That raises a question every Navy must face. What happens when cost and power are no longer linked? If a $500 FPV can erase a multi-million-dollar radar, then the age of traditional warships and sprawling sensor networks may be nearing its end. So what does tomorrow's battlefield look like when ingenuity outpaces entire arsenals?